The chamber was built for certainty. That was what the council liked to tell itself. A circular room of polished composite stone and clean lighting, designed to keep voices calm and decisions rational. No windows, no visible exits, just a ring of seats, a central platform, and a projection system that could turn tragedy into numbers. The projection hovered above the platform like a frozen thought, a colony hub rendered in clean geometry, concentric rings, transit arteries, structural supports. Color-coded overlays pulsed slowly, as if the model itself was breathing. A voice from the analyst tier spoke without emotion. Simulation version 42. Population density updated. Transport capacity within planned margin. Structural fatigue within planned margin. Atmospheric destabilization within planned margin. The same phrase repeated. Within planned margin. Within planned margin. Within planned margin. When it reached the line everyone cared about, the analyst paused just slightly, an unconscious ritual. Projected casualty rate, 2.1%. The number rotated in the air, simple and unarguable. 2.1%. On the council's shared rubric, it was a success. A few members shifted in their seats, the way bodies do when a burden has been moved. Not relief, not satisfaction, just the small, quiet permission to stop thinking for a moment. The chairperson leaned forward, hands folded. Confirmed threshold. The analyst did not look up from the console. Threshold agreed by all coalition partners, 3%. The operation remains within tolerance. Within tolerance. A clean phrase that made death feel like a manageable substance. Like heat, like fuel, like waste. There was a soft murmur in the chamber as members exchanged quick glances. They were not celebrating. They were calibrating. The way a species does when it believes it has successfully controlled an uncontrollable thing. The chairperson's gaze shifted to the human delegation. They sat without adornment. No ceremonial cloaks, no insignia bands, no symbols of office. Their clothing was functional, dark, plain, the kind of uniform that didn't bother pretending it was anything other than a tool. Their posture was still, not rigid, not defiant, still in the way a loaded mechanism is still. The council had been told the human delegates were operational advisors. That phrase had been repeated often enough to feel true. The chairperson spoke with measured diplomacy. Do the human representatives accept the model as presented? One of the humans nodded. Once, almost lazy. Yes, no corrections, no objections, no caveats. A few council members relaxed further. That should have been reassuring. But the observer, an appointed auditor from the compliance strata, made a note anyway. Because something had changed. The humans had been expressionless through every simulation, every projection, every recalculation. Their eyes had tracked data. Their hands had stayed folded. Their silence had been constant. But when the analyst announced the casualty rate, the humans had loosened. Not much. The kind of movement most species wouldn't catch. A shoulder dropping half a fraction. A breath taken without restraint. It looked like relief, which didn't make sense. The observer's translator device displayed a single line of internal annotation. Human behavior shift detected at confirmation of projected loss. The chairperson continued. We proceed to execution. Transport lanes open at cycle 04. Tier prioritization remains unchanged. Emergency stop authority remains with this council. The projection expanded, showing transit lanes, designated extraction windows, resource allocation. The council had built layers of control into the plan. That was their comfort, their identity. The observer watched the human delegates carefully. One of them finally spoke. When does it start? The question landed wrong. Not rude, not impatient, just practical. The analyst answered. Cycle 04, as stated. The human nodded again. Good. No one asked why that mattered. No one asked why the humans sounded like they had been waiting for the moment the numbers cleared a gate. The chairperson signaled the end of session. Members rose. The projection dissolved. The chamber returned to its quiet, controlled emptiness. And the observer, leaving last, recorded a final note before sealing the report. The model did not reduce human concern. It reduced human restraint. The first failure was not dramatic. It never is. A transport corridor, one of the primary arteries connecting the lower-tier housing to the evacuation spine, stalled mid-cycle. The cause would later be attributed to micro-fractures in the mag rail mountings, structural fatigue, an old wound in a place no one expected to matter. At the moment it happened, it was just a delay. The operations center received the alert, flagged it amber, and the model adjusted. The projection that the council had trusted so deeply updated in real time. Casualty rate nudged upward. 2.1 became 2.4, still within tolerance. The operations center routed traffic around the stalled corridor, fed the change back into the model, and prepared a stabilizing repair unit. Then a secondary corridor, redundant by design, failed as well. Not fully, not catastrophically, just enough to make transit unsafe. The model adjusted again. 2.4 became 2.8, still within tolerance. The coalition command staff began to feel the edge of concern. It was not fear. Fear required ignorance. They were very proud of how much they knew. They were watching the math tighten. At the council chamber, an emergency session convened. The projection returned, now colored with more red. The chairperson's tone remained calm, but the cadence had changed. Report. A command liaison spoke. Tier 3 corridor failure. Traffic rerouted. Repair units deployed. Model indicates continued feasibility. The analyst added, projected casualty rate 2.8%. A visible shift moved through the council. 2.8 meant they were close, too close. Several members looked to the emergency stop clause, displayed in the corner of the projection like a moral escape hatch. The chairperson addressed the liaison. Confirm, humans are informed. Yes. The observer sat slightly behind the council ring, recording. Their job was not to decide. Their job was to make sure decisions were traceable. Then the operations feed showed something the council didn't like. Human teams in the field were moving faster than command had cleared. They were not waiting for permissions. They were not requesting consensus. They were not filing formal reroute proposals. They were doing. The chairperson's voice tightened. Why are they redeploying to Sector 9? The liaison checked. Human command redirected units. They are collapsing corridor access to prevent overcrowding. A council member frowned. Collapsing? That corridor is an evacuation artery. The liaison hesitated. They state it is creating bottleneck risk. They are sealing it to reroute flow to sectors 11 and 12. That increases exposure time, another member snapped. It increases loss. The analyst's console pinged. The model updated. 2.8 became 3.2. The threshold crossed. For a half second, the room went perfectly still. Then alarms began. Not loud, not a siren. A clean tone meant to indicate that agreed parameters had been exceeded. The observer watched the council members' hands. Several moved toward their consoles, toward the stop authority interface. This was the moment their entire system was built around. This was where rationality proved itself. The chairperson's voice steadied. Emergency stop authority enacted. Issue halt order. The liaison transmitted. The command general responded with static, then a voice. A human voice. Negative. The council chamber went cold in a way no climate system could explain. The chairperson sat forward. You are in violation of coalition protocol. The human voice on the channel did not change tone. Understood. The chairperson's fingers tightened on the console edge. You will halt execution immediately. Cannot comply. Another council member leaned in, anger rising. You agreed to the threshold. The response came without hesitation. We agreed the threshold, described what you were willing to accept. Silence. The observer's translator stuttered for a moment, as if the concept required reformatting. The chairperson spoke slowly. And what are you willing to accept? The human voice paused, not long, but long enough to feel like a deliberate choice. reality. Then the channel cut. On the projection, the evacuation line shifted violently, corridors sealed, transit lanes rerouted. Whole sectors reclassified from amber to red. Names began to disappear from the roster, not due to system failure, due to reassignment. The observer watched the casualty percentage climb. 3.2, 3.8, 4.1. The council issued a second stop order. No response. The chairperson's hands hovered above the interface as if the act of pressing would matter. The model, cold and obedient, displayed a statement in the corner: operation outside parameters. Catastrophic outcome likely. The humans didn't argue. They didn't even acknowledge it. They moved like a species that had never believed parameters were protection. They moved like a species that saw the threshold not as a boundary, but as a milestone. And somewhere in the lower tiers, people who would never know their names were being moved into places that would not hold. The observer wrote a single line, simple and professional. Coalition control has ended. Human execution continues. The structure did not fail all at once. It folded, like a body giving up. By the time the evacuation spine sealed, the lower tiers were gone. The recording later would show it in clinical geometry, support columns giving way, entire habitation rings slipping into the planet's unstable crust, as if pulled by something patient and hungry. The casualty count did not come in as a clean number at first. There were gaps, missing feeds, entire sectors going silent before final confirmation. The council reconvened in the chamber again, but this time the projection did not feel like a model. It felt like a wound. The analyst's voice was quiet. Final casualty rate, 5.6%. The number hovered in the air, too large to be a rounding error, too small to be apocalypse. It was, by coalition standards, unacceptable. The chairperson's face had not changed, but the skin around their eyes looked tighter. We issued 2 stop orders. The liaison responded, hollow, yes. And they refused, yes. And the operation completed, yes. The council chamber stayed silent. They were trying to decide what to do with the contradiction. Because the survivors were alive. Because the evacuation objective had been met. Because the infrastructure they had prioritized, power, water, medical corps, had remained intact, spun up exactly as the humans had said it would. Everything that mattered to the continuation of the colony existed, at a cost that violated the coalition's agreed morality. The observer sat behind them, listening. In the aftermath review, the human delegation returned to the chamber. They looked unchanged, as if the entire event had been a shift of labor rather than history. The chairperson spoke first. You breached coalition authority. A human nodded once. Yes. You exceeded the agreed loss threshold. Yes. You refused stop orders. Yes. No defensiveness, no explanation, no apology. The chairperson stared at them, searching for something to hold on to. Why? One of the humans answered. Simple, direct. Because stopping wouldn't have saved them. A council member's voice rose, sharp. That is not yours to decide. The human's gaze did not move. It was already decided. The chairperson's jaw tightened. By who? The human paused, not in uncertainty. In selection. Physics. The room fell into a quiet that felt more dangerous than shouting. The council wanted a villain, a single wrong choice, a breach they could punish and then return to the comfort of procedure. But the humans were not claiming righteousness. They were claiming inevitability. The observer made another note. Humans do not reject morality. They reject moral control over outcomes. The council requested the data logs, the action charts, the decision trees. The human delegation handed them over without hesitation. The analysts ran the numbers. The model was recalibrated, inputs adjusted, safeguards reinforced, hard limit protocols rewritten, stop authority clauses strengthened. The council insisted on certainty, the way drowning creatures insist on air. But the recalibrated model kept doing something the council didn't like. It kept showing that if the humans had halted at 3%, the final casualty count would have been worse. Not because the model had been wrong before, because the model had assumed the threshold meant something operational. The threshold had been moral, psychological, political. It was not structural. It was not mechanical. It did not hold the ceiling up. It did not stop the crust from shifting. It did not keep the lower tiers from collapsing. The humans had known that, not because they were smarter, because they were willing to act like the universe did not care about the coalition's comfort. In the final session, the chairperson did not accuse them again. Instead, the chairperson asked a question that sounded harmless and wasn't. If you were placed in command again, would you do the same? The human did not answer immediately. The observer's translator registered a subtle shift, micro-calculations, evaluation, not emotion. Then the human said, yes, no pride, no regret, just confirmation. The council filed the report. The phrase, acceptable loss, remained in the documentation. It was necessary language. It made budgets work. It made projections readable. But in the updated doctrine, a new clause appeared beneath it. A single sentence, written in the council's own sterile legal dialect. Acceptable loss thresholds shall not be used as operational controls in human-led executions. It did not say why. It did not name the dead. It did not assign blame. It simply acknowledged that there was now a category of actor in the galaxy for whom the coalition's moral boundaries were not boundaries at all. They were suggestions, and the universe had never promised to respect suggestions. The observer sealed the record, attached the final casualty number, and added a last private annotation before submission. The council did not learn to reduce loss. The council learned to stop assuming loss could be negotiated.